What's good, Deck Gang? I won't waste any time, but before we get started, I wanted to announce the winners of last week's giveaway. Once again, thanks to everyone that provided feedback and participated in the giveaway. The response was overwhelming with over 75 people that participated. Congratulations to Ignis86 who won the copy of Fist Forged in Shadow Torch. And congratulations to Timothy Zila, LP the Log Praiser, and Pablo Leja, who each won a copy of Tori 2. Both are great games and I hope you all enjoy. I'll be reaching out to each of you individually. As for the feedback I received, I have a number of different ideas for videos, so look out for new content soon, and a Discord will be coming as well, so stay tuned. So what is this video? It's a combination of a few different ideas I had. Number one, I want to recap what games came out last month. Number two, I want to give you all an update on their compatibility with Linux and therefore Steam Deck. Number three, I want to recommend some games that not enough people are talking about. I know a lot of people that visit this channel are new to PC gaming, much less Linux gaming, so I also want to tee this off with a quick primer on some of the things we'll be talking about. I'll go into more detail on each of these for a future video, but for now I'm providing a high level. I know I'm going to get some corrections or clarifications in the comments, and that's great, but I hope that this overview is enough for the uninitiated to understand the rest of this video. Here we go. PC gaming has traditionally been done on the Windows operating system. Linux is a sort of family of operating systems. They all share some key components, and the important thing here is that a Linux operating system is not Windows, meaning Windows games or even Windows apps are not compatible by default. It's like trying to play an Xbox game on your PlayStation. However, for many years now, a lot of smart people have been working on compatibility layers to allow Linux operating systems to play Windows apps conveniently. One such compatibility layer is Proton. Proton is specifically designed for video games and other graphics-heavy applications. Today's video is primarily about how well Proton is working for the list of games that came out in September. So how do we find that information out? There's a website called ProtonDB that is run by Valve themselves. It allows you to record your experience with a Steam game in Proton. Once enough people have given their experience, ProtonDB assigns a rating. The ratings are as follows. Borked, meaning it either won't start or is crucially unplayable. Bronze means it runs but often crashes or has issues preventing from playing comfortably. Silver games run with minor issues but are generally playable. Gold runs perfectly after tweaks, and Platinum games run perfectly out of the box. Generally speaking, the standard we're looking for is Gold and above. In those cases, the playing experience on Linux is essentially the same as the playing experience on Windows. This clearly includes Gold and Platinum, but it actually includes one more category as well, Native. These are games that were built with Linux in mind and have a dedicated Linux version. So anything that's Gold, Platinum, or Native should have an experience that mirrors the Windows experience. ProtonDB refers to the standard as Gold++. Given that information, let me give you a few stats that speak to some of the things I've reported on these last few weeks. ProtonDB likes to give a look at the top 10, top 100, and top 1000 as their key performance indicators. Proton, as a product therefore, is judged by how well it's doing in these three categories. So, how is it doing? The top 10 looks pretty bad. Gold++ is only at 50%, and the way that breaks down is that there are 4 Borked games, 0 bronze, 1 silver, and then there are 2 gold and 3 native. The 2 gold and 3 native make up half of the top 10 for a Gold++ rating of 50%. The 5 games below gold are popular games with anti-cheats that do not work in the Proton compatibility layer. If you've been watching my channel, you should know this is primarily what Valve is working on right now. Next, let's look at the top 100. The story here is similar, but much better already. It has a Gold++ rating of 79%. 11 games are Borked, 10 are Bronze or Silver. That leaves 79 games that are either Gold, Platinum, or Native. And finally, the top 1000. This is extremely similar to the top 100. The Gold++ rating is slightly lower at 77%. One big difference here is that there are 41 games that are unrated. There are not enough reviews to ascertain a proper rating for these games. Obviously, the less popular your game is, the less likely that someone has played it in Linux and subsequently rated its compatibility. This skews the Gold++ rating down as we get beyond the top 1000. This sort of crowdsourcing has reasonable criticisms, but that's beyond the scope of this video. I want to give you one last group of stats, and that's for the games that I've curated for this video. I've selected a total of 54 games. These are all notable, but not necessarily top performing games. Most of these have positive reception and at least 20 reviews on Steam. The Gold++ rating here is 52%, but that's quite misleading because 20 of those games are completely unrated. If I focus only on the rated games, there are 28 out of 34, or 82%, that are Gold++. So let's look at the games in each category. In the Borked category, we have 3 multiplayer games. New World is Amazon's new and already hugely popular MMO. Vampire the Masquerade Blood Hunt is a free-to-play battle royale that entered early access to mixed reviews. Finally, Lemniscate is a supremely clever but somewhat overlooked strategy shooter hybrid. As we track future improvements to Proton, I would expect popular games like New World and Blood Hunt to work towards being Linux compatible in short order. Future is a little muddier for a game like Lemniscate, which seems to have sold decently well, but is it enough for developers to divert resources to work towards Linux compatibility? We'll see. In Silver, we have another 3 games. First up is Deathloop, the latest immersive sim from Arcane and Bethesda. I fully expect this to be Gold++ by the Steam Deck launch, and in fact, I've reported on changes made to Proton in order to make this playable. Then there's Tales of Iron and I Am Fish. They're both playable, but have various bugs. Tales of Iron suffers from crashes after an autosave, and I Am Fish has graphical artifacts. Next up, there are 12 gold games. This includes games that received overwhelmingly positive reception, like Webbed, which is a unique and adorable pixel art platformer, as well as Timberborn, the early access colony simulator, where the twist is it's actually a colony of beavers. Then there's World War Z Aftermath, billed as the ultimate co-op zombie shooter. Potioncraft Alchemist Simulator looks to be a really cozy sandbox and has gotten a lot of great reception. Sable is mostly receiving great reception, but it does have some complaints about bugs and performance, that is, regardless of operating system. Death's Gambit Afterlife is the free, massive expansion to Death's Gambit and continues to play well in Linux. Hot Wheels Unleashed was a sleeper arcade racer this month, and it plays well on Linux. The CRPG, Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous, appears to have sold extremely well with over 8,000 reviews, 80% of those positive. Severed Steel is a super stylish first-person shooter with bullet time and parkour. What's not to like? Eastward is another RPG that did very well for itself. Over 6,000 reviews for this pixel art charmer that has a very compelling narrative. And Kiwi accurately calls itself a cute cooperative postal puzzler. If you're looking for a 2-player title, this might be the one for you. For platinum rated games, we kick it off with one game that received overwhelmingly positive reception, and that's Madness Project Nexus 2. It's a follow-up to the massively popular Flash action title. Next up is NBA 2K22, which received mixed reviews but is sure to sell quite well and will work on Linux. Melty Blood Type Luna is a gloriously stylish fighter that received great reviews and is perfectly playable in Linux. The Metal Gear Solid meets Spaceballs satire game Unmetal also plays perfectly and has enjoyed a warm reception. Lake is the second postal delivery title on this list, but this one is a single-player adventure title. I dig it. Tales of Arise took off like a rocket and looks to be the best JRPG experience of the year. Thankfully, it should be perfectly playable on Linux and the Steam Deck. Game Deck is a narrative CRPG asking you to play detective and solve crimes. This should be a good one for those trackpads. Origami 2 was an anticipated sequel to the Stealth title. So far, it's had mixed reviews, but it might be worth a look if Stealth is your jam. Age of Darkness Final Stand entered early access and definitely has strokes of they are billions, but this survival strategy game does look to stand on its own, and, of course, plays well on Linux. Finally, for platinum rated games is Metallic Child, which looks to be a strong outing for Studio HG. This is an action roguelite that packs a lot more variety than you might expect. Moving on then to Linux native titles, and starting with the one title in this category that reached overwhelmingly positive, we have Imposter Factory. This is a game by the makers of To the Moon and A Bird Story. To the Moon in particular is a short must-play game with a rich story. Imposter Factory's reception has convinced me that I'll have to play this as well. If on a Winter's Night for Travelers is a dark point-and-click available for free and perfectly playable on Linux. Steel Assault is a modern, retro action platformer with stunning pixel art. I played the Linux version myself, and it works wonderfully. Next up are a pair of logic puzzlers. Bonfire Peaks is a spatial puzzler, while the Signal State is more engineering focused. It's good to see an LGBTQ-friendly visual novel in A Year of Springs. It tracks 3 stories and tackles issues that people of different genders and sexualities may face. Finally, Skatebird had a bit of a tough launch, but the devs released patches that brought the rating up to very positive. Finally, we have 20 unrated games. While they are unrated, I suspect our Gold++ rating would be around 75 to 80% as it is with the rest of the list. For overwhelmingly positive, we once again have one title, Opus Echo Star Song. This is a narrative puzzle adventure with a whopping 97% positive reviews. Here's a pair of non-Steam games, Kena and The Eternal Cylinder. These are Epic Games Store timed exclusives, and so they don't show up on ProtonDB at all. For what it's worth, I've seen videos of Kena running on Linux. And how about this pair? 2 wholly unique takes on chess. Pawnbarian is a dungeon crawling roguelite, and Chessplosion is an action puzzler with local and online multiplayer. Astria Ascending got some mixed reviews. Initial ratings indicate that it's playable on Linux, but they are not enough to get a rating. In Sound Mind is a first-person psychological horror. There are some performance complaints, but that's regardless of operating system. The Wholesome Adventure Teacup has no reports, but I'm really hoping it plays well on Linux. I'm absolutely astonished to see that Unsighted has 0 reports. More people should be playing this game. I'll be submitting my report shortly. Like Skatebird, Nycro had a tough launch. The developers are working on their issues, and I expect to see the reception to this game improve drastically as they do that. Tori 2. While both Tori 3D and Tori 2 are unrated, they seem to perform well in Linux based on my tests. These cute 3D platformers are only $1 each, so pick one up. A Juggler's Tale is a cinematic platformer that seems to be in the vein of Inside or Limbo, and it has the reviews to match. Hopefully we see some more Linux reports soon. The Artful Escape is an indie darling type from Annapurna. With strong voice acting credits like Jason Schwartzman, this game looks extremely well produced. Tome is a delightful, hand-drawn black and white adventure title that asks you to solve problems using photography. Source of Madness is a Lovecraftian RPG that entered early access and is enjoying a warm reception so far. Goodness, look at that pixel art. The dystopian story-rich golf game Golf Club Wasteland has seen a lot of good reviews, so I'm hoping we get more Linux reports over time. Lost in Random is a 3D action-adventure title published by EA and inspired by gothic fairy tales. Finally, another game not enough people are talking about is Flynn, Son of Crimson. The pixel art is on point and the action platforming is tight. That's my curated list of September releases and their Proton ratings. I want to leave you with my favorite 5 of those games. Webbed may end up being my favorite title of the year. It oozes charm, has a wonderful soundtrack, and a tight 6 to 10 hours of gameplay. Highest recommendation from me. I predict that the action RPG Unsighted will get a lot more sales and a lot more reviews as word of mouth spreads. This isometric Zelda-like is damn good and damn worth your money and time. I'm sure you've heard plenty about Kena by now. I've only just gotten started, but it feels like this one is going to stick with me. Steel Assault is exactly what it looks like. A challenging action platformer that harkens back to the early 90s with a pace to match. Severed Steel. I love stylish, I love shooters, and I love parkour-style first-person platforming. I'll be ready with gyro and trackpads when it comes time to play this on the deck. That wraps this month's progress report on PC games and Proton Compatibility. If you made it this far, you are a real one, and you may have heard this before. Like and subscribe, slap the bell to get notified, tell a friend it's a vibe. That gang out. Goodbye!